history.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I thought, how about this for a trivia question? Anybody have any guesses as to how many arches are on the top of the Chrysler building?
4.
Oh, I asked it a little too late. Somebody take a wild guess. It's almost, it's too high. Anybody else?
7.
Yeah, you got it. Nice. And you win a prize. All right, so it's a soap dish. Yep, emphasizing the hygienic properties. So in the 40s, there was an extensive study of electropolishing around the time of World War II, and that's what we're going to be doing a little bit later today. Turn this on. And let's see, 50s just started using it more in car accessories. And in 1953, stainless steel played a major part in conquering Mount Everest because they were able to finally use oxygen containers in a portable way. So they had stainless steel oxygen containers. Anyone remember either of the names of the guys that climbed Mount Everest?
Hillary and Tenzing.
You got it. Yeah, not bad, man. I'm surprised you got Tenzing because he was the Sherpa. He had to carry all the crap. But everyone forgets him. And then it was used in the 50s and 60s in Mach 2 jets and nuclear power stations because it has a high temperature resistance. The St. Louis Arch, that was in 65, and that was clad with stainless steel, but it's built over a steel structure, which is too bad because they keep having problems with that. The inside's rusting out. 1969, the first men on the moon are taken there by a stainless steel Saturn V rocket. Anybody remember the mission? Which one that was? There was a movie.
All 13.
11.
That's right. Yeah, it's 11. 13 also went though.
So did
And
we
then-
get the soap dish?
You got it,
Or are
man.
we passing into the,
No, you nailed it. It's
really?
yours.
oh, my own soap dish?
You're very
I actually need one of these.
All right. I can't smell anything from here. You're fine. I'm sorry, man. In the early 80s, you guys remember the famous car that was made of stainless steel? Yeah, made famous in Back to the Future. And a favorite quote of mine is by George McFly. He says, "Last night, Darth Vader came down from planet Vulcan, and he told me that if I didn't take Lorraine out, that he would A, vaporize my comics, B, melt my brain, or C, smuggle cocaine in the doors of the DeLorean." Any guesses?
Vaporize my comments?
No. Melt your brain. Yeah, that's it. I think it's the last trivia question. Yeah, smuggling coke in the doors actually did happen by the owner, John DeLorean, and that ended his firm. But at present, there's a lot of other engineering feats and structures made of stainless steel. I got a few on here like the European Court of Human Rights, Scottish Parliament building, Petronas Towers are clad in it. And also, the uses keep expanding. Now it's common for it to be used in our bodies in stents. Stainless steel that's electropolished can be used for pins and things like that. So there's a brief history.
I have 14 screws in this arm to attest to that, by the way.
Are they stainless? Really? Wow. That's cool. Yeah, it's good stuff. It's probably type 316 LVN. Do you know if that's
I'll
right?
remember that number.
Okay. In case you need to pick one up at the hardware store. That's what you want. As far as abilities go that you can, it's used a lot by the food and medical industries because it's easily cleaned, sanitized, and because of its stainlessness, and it's one of the most hygienic surfaces. It doesn't chip or easily rust. It has strength and corrosion resistance, I've mentioned the beauty of it. That's what originally attracted me to it. Was it's just got this inherent gleam and reflectivity. It's really attractive from different angles to play with, and it's totally recyclable. It's one of the most recycled things on the planet right now. And in fact, most of whatever you're using has had a previous life as something else. So all the stainless, even though I bought it, there's a 90% chance that it had a previous incarnation as something else. And it has cross uses. For instance, glass workers can slump over it. Brewers like to use it. And anywhere with a caustic environment, bathrooms, kitchens, marine, outdoors, body piercing, all that. So let's talk a little bit about actually working with stainless. And let me check the temperature on this stuff first. See how close we are. Well, it's a little bit sure. Crank it up a little bit. As far as where you get your stainless, I've got a sheet here. If you guys want to take a look. There's different places in town that carry it, and yeah, if you just want to pass a few out, that'd be cool. And there's all different price ranges, all different types of dealers. There's a few in town that are really good to deal with, and a few that aren't. And you can always specify where your stainless comes from. You can specify where it's made by asking for a metallurgical test report. They call it MTR. So you can get stuff that's made really close to where you live and reduce the carbon footprint. As far as forming it, I'm not going to talk too much about that because a lot of the tools are common to regular steel used to form and shape stainless. However, you have to keep in mind that if you're going to grind or use abrasives on it, make sure that they're stainless themselves or that they haven't been used with steel. So in other words, don't use steel, because I mentioned earlier the St. Louis Arch. On one side of it, about 25 feet up, it was rusting, and they kept having to polish it. And the reason was the guy working it, when he first made it, he polished it with a steel grinding wheel, and that impregnated steel into it and later caused the channel for the rust to start. So something to look for next time you're passing through the Midwest. And as far as welding and brazing goes, this is the area that took me kind of the longest to figure out, because if you can learn to gas weld regular steel, then you can also gas weld stainless. The only difference is you just have to use a special flux for it. And it seems like this is the information that's really unavailable these days, because a lot of people think you have to TIG weld in order to use stainless steel. And that can be a huge hurdle to overcome because of the cost and just because of the space of having to have that kind of machine in your shop. A lot of times it's easier to borrow a gas welder from somebody else. A lot of guys aren't using them anymore. They just use them for cutting. So there's a lot of old gas welders available, for instance, on Craigslist. And as far as torches go, this is a typical gas welding torch, and this is used for, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch material, and even you can use it for thinner. A couple others that's good to know about. This is a Miko midget torch, which is a wonderful little torch, and a lot of body guys will use these. Guys that work on airplanes, aluminum welders. It's a great torch. There's a guy called Kent White, nicknamed the Tin Man, who's done some of the most amazing welding you'll ever have seen. And he swears by this and sells them. And then there's also this little guy, the Smith Little torch. And you can do the most tiny, delicate little welds with these.
Say the name again, please.
Smith? Yeah, just Smith Little torch. And the tips are all interchangeable on them. Same with that one too. So those are 3 companies that I found a lot of success with. And let's see, as far as is the benefits of torch welding over TIG welding. It goes both ways, but gas welding or torch welding is more versatile because besides just welding with it, you can also cut with it. You can do brazing and soldering. You can anneal the metal, and then you can use it for bending and forming. So it's much more of a workhorse than say just a TIG welder. And also it's portable. You're not constricted to an outlet like you would be with a TIG. It's far less expensive to buy and operate. And also when you're actually using it, gas will enter into a narrower angle than the TIG welder's arc will. Smaller headgear, you can get away with just goggles or shades. And working with, say, like a shade 5 lens is way easier than a shade 11 for a TIG welder. So you can get like an overall feel of what you're actually doing, what's going on. And I think that helps creativity.
Plus it look cooler.
Yeah, the goggles, man. Yeah, way cooler.
What gases are you using?
I use acetylene and oxygen, but I also use natural gas. That's what I use with this torch. Do you have experience with either?
I've used oxyacetylene.
Yeah, I like oxyacetylene for welding because it tends to go in more like a dagger, but natural gas tends to hug the material. It feels like it goes around more, so it heats from the back as well. And for brazing, that's what you want because it'll help draw the material through the joint. And with brazing with natural gas, you don't even need, you can do it, just your open eyes. So it's really nice.
You want to use some kind of shade.
Yeah.
Because infrared.
Yeah, okay.
And long-term damage.
Alright, well, edit that part out. Forget that suggestion.
I got this from a welding shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I trust you.
They made me do it.
But as far as just the headache of if not being able to see what's around you matters while you're creating, brazing is a lot easier of a way to go. Plus, there's less distortion and warpage with it, less gas is used, less cleanup, less heat, 1,000 degrees cooler. So that's better for the metal because of complicated reasons. It makes a smoother joint too. All these joints were brazed. These were all silver brazed on here. And I couldn't get that smooth of a joint if I was welding.
Which torch do you use for that?
That one I used mostly the Miko Midget, but with some of the smaller things I actually spot welded them. And I brought tweezers for that. So there's companies that make what are called hobby spot welders. And you're just passing electricity through the copper electrodes. And it's also called a resistance welder because at the point where it has the most resistance, where it has to jump the gap, it creates heat. And that makes little weld nuggets that hold the pieces together. So all these little guys were all resistance welded. And that's all in their field too.
Did you ever use that for tacking pieces together before you braze them?
Yeah, all of it's done that way. Yeah, that's kind of the secret weapon because getting an armature to hold this stuff would be so hard, next to impossible. Well, let's see. Let's maybe start the EP demo, electropolishing. Let's see how hot this stuff got in the meantime. With this, you want to have it about, boy, they should make these things small. Want your face right in the acid. You want it between 110 and 130. And you can go hotter, but you can't really go much cooler or it'll etch. And this is a blend of acids in there. I'll put my glasses on. If you guys want to put yours on too, you're welcome to.
Is it mild or what's it?
It's a blend of sulfuric, phosphoric, and water. It's mostly phosphoric acid. Yeah. Well, it's the same stuff in Coca-Cola. That helps you at all. Just a little higher concentration. And don't use your wife's cookware. As you can see, I got this at Goodwill. I left the sticker on just for proof. But what's going to happen here is I'm going to use an anode and a cathode, and we're going to run electricity through a workpiece. Make sure this is off. And we'll make this the workpiece here. Yeah, okay. You want to come over and help me out, please? Hold the button. Let me get some gloves on.
Oh, it doesn't
There
look
you
good
go.
with my hat.
Yeah, you need a safety container for your braid too. My snazzy apron. I don't know where I could get a good apron around here. Only there's such a source. Let me grab these.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I don't blame you if you don't want to sit right up front. I was saying earlier, this won't be like a Shamu show. There won't be like the splash room in front.
Should I move?
If you sure, yeah, just because if you ask and then something does happen, then. But all right. So what's going to happen is electricity is going to go through this. This is the positive, and then the negative, the black one, is going to be the actual container. But on a larger setup where you're using, say, polypropylene or polyethylene, then you would have to have the cathodes hanging into that. And so this would be connected to the pieces, the metal pieces hanging into the container. But this is a small enough setup that we're using the container itself as the cathode. And this is the opposite of household voltage, which is usually, do you want to hit the button?
Green button?
Yeah.
Oh, this is the easy part.
Okay,
Do you
here
want
we
me
go.
to keep going?
Yeah, go ahead. So you can see the gas coming off of it.
If you look at it from above, it's foaming.
I'm glad I moved.
Yeah, it's
See, the science working.
it's right. Nice when science shows you some effort. So I'm just holding it for now, but the electricity is going through the workpiece and out into the acid and across into the container itself. And the idea here is that as it comes off of the metal, off of the workpiece, it's leaving preferentially from the high points. So it's smoothing it as it goes, because as it leaves, it takes ions of metal with it, and it'll slowly wear down those peaks. And also, the reason we use the acid, there's other things you can use too, but it's a viscous liquid, and so it fills in the cracks quite a bit, or the crevices. If you think of like mountains and valleys, the acid is gelling up and settling into the valleys, and that prevents the electricity from leaving from the valleys. So that's another way that smooths.
So will it actually eat away the piece of moved into long?
Yeah, it will.
How long do you have on that?
I've never had that happen. I've had
You haven't
things
even tested?
just like leave it in like overnight and see what happens. Actually, I have left it in for longer than I should a few times, but it'll be noticeably thinner. But what happens is the gel spreads out, like it's in the crevices, but if you leave it in too long, once the crevices or the lip around the crevices are worn down, then it just spreads itself out. And so it starts electropolishing much slower than, even though it will still be taking some
So
material.
does the bowl get thicker?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, the metal's going on and sticking onto the bowl. And the difference between this and say buffing, buffing you are using some like a circular buff at a high RPM, and that's wearing the surface down. Well, it's doing it through abrasion, and those abrasive lines are dragging across the surface, and it appears to be smooth because it's like stepped, and it's all parallel to each other. Those lines are, and so when light bounces off that, it's reflecting quite a bit of light back. Even though on a microscopic level it's not entirely smooth, there's still plenty of crevices or even burrs on it. But with this, it's more like the surface of the ocean. Like there's like a wave pattern if you look at it through a microscope. And so it's not actually as flat as if you were to buff it, but the luminosity of it is even brighter. When something's electropolished, it has a glow that is beyond even just what happens when you buff. I'm pretty attracted to it. Let's see where we're at. Yeah, you can take it. Thanks. Jameson is the Vanna White of the electropolishing.
So how many amps did you have your instrument set for?
It was at about 7. It's funny because this is just a cheapo Harbor Freight battery charger, which I sort of brought just so other people can see the possibilities. You could also use like a DC, a welder would work, just to make the conversation go full circle, ironically. An electric welder, you could use that. Or, there's other sources. But I had it set at about 7 volts, and then the amps were up probably about 40 to 50. So household current is like 120 volts, and then a light bulb is maybe 2 amps. So it's pretty much the opposite. Low voltage, high amperage with this, whereas in the house it's the opposite. And I'll do a double rinse before I pass it out.
How did they discover that electricity could polish?
Plating has been around for a long time. That's been around for a couple 100 years, but I think I've heard a few theories, and probably the most plausible is they just hooked everything up backwards. Because with plating, you're doing the exact opposite. You're sending electricity from the outside to the piece, and you're taking some gold with it and laying it on the surface. And this is the exact opposite.
So how many times did you polish an object like that through this process without being able to have a measurable loss of mass?
I'd say after 45 minutes, you'd start seeing it thin down some. Yeah. As far as the actual electrolyte goes, I've used this batch for well over a year now. I use it every week, and it doesn't wear out. And I've got plans of what to do when it starts to wear out, because you can pull the need some hand-eye gloves too that Avery ordered. You can recycle this stuff and pull the metal out that's trapped in it, so you can make this stuff last indefinitely. There's no reason ever to get rid of it. But you can see after just a few minutes the difference from one side to another. If you look at it, I'll pass this one around too. That one was brazed together, so the joints are going to be a little bit more etched looking, and this piece was welded. So even the welded joints would get brightened.
So these are decorative pieces.
Yeah.
They make great egg beaters.
Yeah. Yep. Custom egg beaters, kitchen accoutrements.
Yeah.
So do you polish a whole birdcage like this at one time in a bathtub? Or what?
Yeah, that's the hard thing, because on the West Coast there's only a few really large electropolishers. There's I threw a few pictures up here. The ones that everything is green, like the color of this, the room stuff, that's up in Everett, Washington. And they've got one you could put maybe a small car into. It's enormous. And they that's where this was done. They lowered it in there and just turned on the juice, and it went. But yeah, they've got some really big ones.
So that's beyond the realm of your home studio kind of stuff.
I'm headed that direction. I've got some plans, and if anyone, yeah, not in the kitchen.
So the bowl is working as like a cathode.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the site? So are is there metallic deposition that's happening on the bowl?
Yeah, very slight amount. And when I pour this out later, you can see a little bit of gray, just a tiny bit. In fact, you'd see if you wipe it out with a rag, you'll see a little bit on it.
Is the type of metal of the vessel particular?
Stainless steel, copper works, titanium. They say lead works. I've never tried it. Yeah, just anything that conducts current.
So you could use, in theory, you could use a brewery vat.
Yeah, stainless steel brewery vat. Yeah, but the difference is when you're going bigger, you're going to be having a variety of things in there. And let's say, like one of these, I electropolished this one because I've got a bigger setup, about a 5-gallon setup, and I did this twice. But I rearranged the cathodes to be a lot closer, and so it would polish much more evenly because there's only so much throwing power. That's the term for how the electricity works its way around. And if you're just using a round bowl, then say whatever is nearest the edges is going to get worn down way faster. So you'll want to use like a polypropylene, high density, especially one that's good with temperature. Anything on the bottom, if it says HDPP, you can use that, high density polypropylene, and it'll be stamped. A lot of things we use are. So you want to be able to move the cathodes around with larger things. But I mean, all in all, like I've been doing this for a while, but I'm still such a novice, and it's amazed me at how easy this stuff is, you know. And that's one thing I thought would make it worth talking about, is because there's a lot of things out there that are made to seem hard, I think. So you can be sold a product or a service, but as far as gas welding goes, you can gas weld stainless steel and you can electropolish with relative ease. And if anybody has questions, feel free to call me or any of the suppliers I recommended. Yeah, so that's it, guys. Thanks a lot for coming.
Awesome.
Really appreciate it. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to fire away.
Why did you get started in this?
I've always been really attracted to drawing and architecture in general, and this seems like a way to explore shape and architectural function.
Did you find other materials? Did you play with other materials before you got into stainless? Or?
You know, I've made cages for a long time just with wire, like baling wire, things like that, and I played with that stuff since I was a kid. So not really. Wood, I mean, I come from a family of carpenters, and so I've always had wood around, and it's just more motivation to kind of break away and do something different. So I use wood for all the jigs for building these things around, but yeah, stainless.
Where did you get your little vendors?
Oh, on here? Diacro makes some wonderful things.
Okay.
Yeah, Diacro. They're out of Wisconsin. And you can buy them used pretty easily. Yeah, and the other one is from Shop Outfitters out of Colorado, and that's the one with the big crank with the 3 wheels. I use that for making the bigger hoops, like this. And the diacro bender is used for anything, say this radius or smaller. Yeah.
Do you own a bird?
I actually don't. I know, right? Yeah, I'm obsessed with more the architecture end of it. That's why I was a little fearful of this guy coming in and knowing I'm a cage maker.
Have you ever done any bike racks?
I haven't, no. You know, my range is pretty much with the equipment I've got 1/4 inch or thinner. So bolt cutters will get through that still.
Did you so when you're brazing, what are you using for rod? Did you mention that?
No, thanks for asking. I use silver solder. Well, they call it silver solder, but it's silver braze alloy. And
so what's the
that stuff there is
2%?
2% nickel.
Oh, so
Yeah, and it's 50% silver.
this is expensive stuff.
It's not cheap, and it's only going up. It's crazy.
So this is
I've seen the price triple.
This is probably $100.
If that thing was full, Maybe about 120 bucks, yeah. And there's a lot of it in these things. That's why I can't sell them too cheap.
Do you use anything else? Or is it all?
No, because nothing is a nice color match like this stuff, and it just gives it the smoothest joint. I mean, the joints are absolutely. They make you look like you know what you're doing. You know what I mean? They cover a lot of errors for sure.
Have you found anything else that's close? I've been looking for something that has a lot of some like color properties. I can deal with something that's more not nice to use, but it's so expensive.
Right. There's different percentages of. There's the tin silver, which is like 3% silver and then 97% tin, and that stuff's really cheap, and you can use that. It's a little bit grayer, but the big thing is it's not quite as strong. But for a lot of applications, that's okay. For this, it's not, because these are cross-wire welds, so there's a very small joint. But if you're using, say, sheet or somewhere where you can get bigger lap type weld, where it can just fit right in there, then that's plenty strong. Yeah, so, or maybe even the tin lead. There's one that's 63% tin off the top of my head that's recommended for stainless steel. And on the resource sheet, the guy Kent White, the Tin Man, he's the guy with the brains on that stuff. Just tell him what your parameters are, what your material is, and how much you want to spend, and ask away. Yep.
Talk about your design process a little bit. Do you plan out, do you make one side and then duplicate it? Do you plan out the facets all at once?
I've never actually made two the same, but some of them start similar, and then I get ideas as I go. But yeah, I tend to draw things out. Whenever we travel, we do a lot of sketching, and I do a lot of architectural sketching in particular. And I come back and just kind of filter that through and come out with an idea of what I think I'm going to start with. And then I change it quite a bit. So the end result is always way different than the start. Like with this one, the top was actually a lot different, but then I kind of got obsessed with this shape that I saw on a Gothic cathedral, and I went on to it from there to develop this. But the original top was going to reflect the shell shape a lot more. So I lost that, but you know, I like it. But yeah, it's a back and forth process. For sure.
Does stainless take on any patina other than heat?
Yeah, actually, I brought this stuff because I've not used too much. You say take on a patina?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, check this out. Here, I guess I'll show you guys from here first. But this company specializes in colored stainless steel. I'm not sure exactly how they're doing it. If it's like an anodizing process, like you see with say aluminum. But you can get a pretty good range of golds and silvers. Yeah, I'll give you this card too if you want. And Caswell has some of this stuff too in the resource list. The platers, Caswell plating. And we've gotten a blackener through them that works pretty good.
So there's a picture of a wire with a little ball on the end, not a sphere, but is that braze material, or is that actually stainless that's just kind of gelled on the end of the wire? Does it make sense?
Oh, I'm trying to remember what picture it was.
It's like a soap dish.
So, okay, with the soap dishes, that's brazing rod
Okay.
that I've just melted it
Okay.
just a little bit onto it, and it kind of jumps on and I pull away.
Okay.
Yeah. So getting those consistent, by the way, is like one of the hardest things I do. So, but if it's not, then it's handmade, right? So it works either way.
How thick can your hobby spot welder handle?
I would say it will tack weld probably 3/8. I mean, it
What
does
was the
pretty
source
good.
for that?
This one came from a place that was called hobbyspotwelders.com until he made it, and now it's called Sunstone Engineering. which commands a much higher price by the name, you can tell. So that's why I didn't put it on the list, because there may be other sources too. But this guy really is the king of this size. He's out of Provo, Utah. And I was living in Utah for a few years, so I came across him through a friend of his and got him to make me one in like a Radio Shack, like radio case. So,
Would you say you draw most of your inspiration from like classical architecture, or you keep up with modern kind of details as well?
As far as modern goes, I don't pay too much attention to what's going on in the art world, but we've got a lot of books, anywhere from say the Gothic era to Art Nouveau, and you'll see a lot of that in the curves here.
Right.
I'm also always fascinated with cars and stuff like that. My shop's next door to Oregon Plating, so I mean every day there's guys in hot rods coming up bringing in cool parts. I get to look at a lot of that.
They get to see your bird cages.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not interested. He's stock king. Yeah, he's a jock for sure. Interesting guy. But I like him. He's a good neighbor.
So in your slideshow here, which I'm enjoying very much, I'm noticing that
There it is.
looks like your gal is working with material and you're working with stainless. Do you coordinate that in any of your pieces?
Oh yeah, she's done quite a bit of like some of the copper working. She'll do a lot of that, and she's a jeweler, so I get ideas from her as far as fine tuning, and then she gets ideas from me for like overall structural stuff. So there's a lot of cross. I can't think of a good word. Yeah, there you go. I want to say contamination, but depends on how bad the piece turns out. I guess the only other thing to mention is just as far as polishing compound, if you guys are actually going to use stainless, get the green stuff. I've wasted a lot of money on stuff that didn't work. But
Is that polishing compound?
yeah, yep. And then this is the head of a Fordham flex shaft, which you can buy all different attachments for. And this is a good route to go.
This is your favorite flux here? Or is it that one?
Yeah, this guy for stainless, and then this is for copper, and you can weld copper too. So, but yeah, I think that's about it. Thanks everybody. Appreciate it.
Good job.
Thanks again, Joe. Really appreciate it. Our next Curiosity Club will be on May 1st with Tom Burklow of New Deal Distillery. His talk is entitled Spirits as a Journey Without a Map, Rediscovering Craft Without Guidance, Musings of a Cranky Distiller. And yeah, it's going to be great. So we'll see you then.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, good brain.
I know, man. I had no idea.
Right on.
Price of those.
Was she telling you answers?
No,